Michelle, welcome back. Trying a little something new. As you notice, there's no introduction. I was like generally just irritable the other day and editing a video, and it had just been gnawing at me that I realized how annoying my intro song was and like how annoying it just was. So I just decided to stop using it. I'll likely bring back a more minimal one in the future, but right now I'm just going with none. So we're just gonna jump straight away into today's video, which is the school days book tag. I was tagged a while ago to do this, Ebony at Butterflies on My Bookshelf. The original creator of this tag is What Victoria Read. This is a really unique tag where the questions are gonna be different depending on whose video you watch, because it's kind of a create your own school day or create your own curriculum book tag where you kind of pick and choose what classes that you would like to take, thus determining what questions you're going to answer. For more information on that, definitely go check out the original creator's book tag for all of the questions and how you're supposed to do this. So let's go ahead and get started on my school day. First, Belle, tell us about a book that got you into reading. Obviously, we're going with Twilight. I mean, were you surprised? I mean, maybe you were if you're new here. If you are, hi. Thank you so much for joining me. I started reading the series after the first movie came out. When the first movie came out, I watched the movie incessantly. It's probably embarrassing to admit, but I was kind of stuck at home was I on maternity leave yet? I'm not sure. I don't think I was quite on maternity leave yet. Either way, I had nowhere to go. I was stuck at home, and thus I just binge watched the first movie, and then I realized it was books, and I fell in love with the book. But before that, I wasn't really into reading, and look where we are today. So, not like I'm trying or need to have justification for enjoying this book, but it just came to me at the right time. I read this book when my life was on a huge turning point, and I really felt like I could relate to Bella so much on certain things, which I'm not going to go into. Honestly, they're kind of personal, but there were certain things about Bella's character that I could seriously relate to. This series just came to me at a time when I really needed it. Break time. Which book have you most recently had to take a break from or DNF? I switch around a lot, so it's really nothing new to kind of set a book aside for a minute. However, a book that I put aside is Well of Ascension. I had first put it to the side for an impromptu reading vlog that I did last month, and I just kind of needed a break from super high intense fantasy, and I kind of just wanted to read some easier stuff and just give my brain a break. So that was the first reason I put it down. I'm actually having a harder time getting back to it than I'd like. It's just that it's a really dense, and right now within this story specifically, I'm at a real lull in the story. Several things are kind of going on with this book. One thing is the magic system. I feel like this is the second in this trilogy. So then the first book I was just entranced in learning the magic system and learning the world. But I feel like I've already done that now, so there's not anything new in that aspect to learn about. Secondly, just a lot of the political side of the story going on, which is not my favorite part of pretty much any book. I like that there's a complex political system, but I don't like to hang out there in that space for very long. And there's a lot of that. Not so much the action where we're gonna make something happen, more of the going back and forth and trying to decide what to do next. I could skip that. Realistically, I could skip that and be fine. I do think that it's necessary because that's how wars go. That's realistically how things would go. Things aren't instantaneous like a lot of our books. So that's just me being me. We have all this buildup. We have all this tension. We're getting bored. We just want something to happen. And then when it happens, it's going to be epic. I just know it. I know it in my heart. It's going to be worth it. It's just getting through it. Plus, there are things happening. There's some really big overarching themes going on. And I'm very interested in that. And there's little pieces scattered throughout here that give us a little bit more clues to the overarching problem. And so in that respect, it's so good. All right, lunchtime. Tell us about your favorite book that features food. Heartless by Marissa Meyer. Kath, our main character, loves to cook. She specifically likes to make sweet treats, and that's all she wants to do is she wants to cook, and she wants to open her own shop. But unfortunately, she is supposed to get married and be queen. No, she's supposed to get married, and that is supposed to be all that she is. And she's just not happy with that. So she keeps trying to just find her little bit of happiness with cooking. Now, there's a lot of different foods that she cooks in here, but there's one specific, and I think it stands out to me because I love lemon tarts. I love lemony bread. I love lemon bars. I like to make those at home. I don't know how to make tarts, but there's one specific recipe she makes. They're like little mini lemon cakes or something. Yeah, I was like hungry for sugar every time I read this. Final bell. Which book did you most recently finish reading? That would be The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I don't really know what else to say about this except it was fantastic. About every single page I have underlined or highlighted or bracketed something in this book. It's so good. How did I go this long without reading it? Just saying. Homework. What was the last nonfiction book that you read and enjoyed? Nonfictions are not a typical thing for me to read. It's very rare. Last month I did read Letters to a Young Poet. And then also last month I started Marie Curie, the biography. I didn't finish it. I didn't intend to either though. I really just wanted to spend time with this book in spirit of March, which was National Women's Month, National Women's History Month or something. So I just really wanted to spend time with a book about a woman from history that made a huge impact on our world. She's a scientist. I read about 50 pages into it. I mean, it's a big book, okay? There was a lot to be said within these 50 pages. A lot of it was about the history, her family, her parents. They were all scientists. And so that's kind of where she got it from. Also, they were Polish, and that opens up a whole other can of worms to be Polish and during their time. And they had to like pick up and move and just all kinds of stuff. And then also her career as a scientist and being a woman. From what I read from the book, we talk more about her past. When she was a child, her mother was sick. Her father was a scientist and teaching her as a young child about his work. And then I also read Radioactive. It's on Amazon Prime. It's like a mini series. It opens up the mini series with her just being absolutely frustrated because she had to follow such and such rules. She had to work under people, and she was just livid because she was protecting her discoveries. If she were to work under their labs and maybe make a discovery, I guess they could take ownership. They could take credit for her discovery. She just wasn't about that. And finally, somebody gave her a chance, and then this is about her life with her husband, who gave her a chance. Absolutely, like they fought over her. Like she was just very cautious about anyone taking credit for her work, and she wouldn't accept any help because she didn't want them to have any claim on her work. Like she was actually really intelligent about that, but like she had to fight so hard being a woman of that time. Reading things like this just make me feel so small and pathetic because they've accomplished so much and under much harder conditions. What a fascinating woman. Next category is stack room. Tell us about a book that you reach for when you need a break. Again, this is going to be Twilight. But honestly, I haven't reread the series as much as you might think, but it is my comfort, cozy blanket book. I've actually probably read City of Bones more than I've reread Twilight at this point in my life, which would also be equal because that book is fast. That book is also equally as good. Despite my feelings on the entire universe and all the books, the first book is my favorite and I will always go back to it. All right, let's go into the subjects. The first subject is English. Tell us about a book that you studied at school and would recommend one book that you'd like to see added to the curriculum. Okay, well this was kind of challenging because at first I start with high school, right? I don't remember a lot about high school. We're going to go ahead and skip to college Shakespeare class. So my Shakespeare class was fast-tracked, which made it really fast-paced and intense, and we had to read about a play a week, plus we had, I believe, 2 major research projects, plus we had discussion topics, we had to answer 2 questions, a prescribed amount of words. It was a lot. It was a lot of work. However, it was so much fun. We read King Lear, Henry V, Midsummer Night's Dream, Hamlet, Macbeth, and Measure for Measure. All were excellent except for Henry V. And actually, Midsummer Night's Dream was not a favorite of mine. I know that's really important to cover each topic, a comedy, a tragedy, and a history of his different genres of plays that he wrote. You know, to fully cover the class correctly. But Henry V was seriously so boring. It was so hard to get through that play. And then under the intense pressure of having to get my discussions in, have it read, like I would actually try to stop an entire day and just read my play for a day. And I had a full term. I had 4 classes, and all of my classes were paralegal classes, so there's lots of reading for all my classes, lots of writing. So it was a lot to have to read a play that you really do not like. And still, I can't really remember. I don't remember anything about it. So instead of Henry V, I would have much rather preferred another tragedy. I would have really liked to read Othello or Taming of the Shrew. I really don't like Midsummer Night's Dream either, just because it was so frivolous and silly. I know it's like an all-time favorite. I don't get it. I think it's way overhyped. I think it's just ridiculous. And I really could not appreciate it at all until after discussion. All right, next class is for geography, a book with great world building. Honestly, there's so many different ones I could specifically choose for this one, so I kind of went with a style. So for this answer, I'm going with The Wicked Deep. Oh, you know what? I should grab the book. So this is the first book I would say that really kind of defined what I like to see, drew me into that kind of setting, that kind of thick, tense atmosphere, dreary atmosphere. And I find that consistently, I love that setting. It just sets a specific mood that I really love to see. I guess I didn't exactly explain this, but it takes place in a small town, a small coastal town, and also there's like an island off the coast, and it takes place between these spaces. It's dark and mysterious. Okay, so I should actually explain this book to you. Okay, so The Wicked Deep is about the small coastal town. Each summer, when the summer solstice, a boy goes missing and they're drowned. To kick off the summer solstice, despite knowing this, kids like go down and like have a summer party on the beach. Our main character, who's the narrator, there's a new boy that comes to town, and she's like trying to warn them not to do it. It's just so good.
I'm really sorry. I did a really bad job of explaining this book.
And it's so like thick with tension and atmosphere, and it's dark and it's spooky, and I love it. Other books that have the same similar setting, which I absolutely loved, and a lot of what I loved about it was the atmosphere, and that is Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. Again, there is a dark mystery around the small town and missing people, and our main characters have to figure it out, and it's also got some supernatural elements to it. So good. House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. I loved this book. Again, it was a lot of the atmosphere. It was so, to me personally, I can't help but compare it to David Bowie's Labyrinth in a way when they go to the parties. There's also some supernatural elements to it. There is like this foreboding feeling of that's wrong. As beautiful and glorious as it is, there's something wrong about it that doesn't feel right. It's so good. I love it. But again, that takes place on a little island, and there's a lot of sorrow around House of Salt and Sorrows because, well, basically, House of Salt and Sorrows is based on 7 dancing girls or Oh, Seven Dancing Princesses. That's what it's called. So that might have made a difference in why I really liked it, because I didn't know where it came from. I don't know the Seven Dancing Princesses story. To me, it was just wholly unique. I didn't know it was a retelling. There's like 16 girls, and the mother died. Sets off like a chain reaction, and every year they lose another sister, and what they do is they have a whole like year of mourning where they can only wear black, they can't go out, etc. The town has gotten, I don't know, they kind of feel like they're cursed. Also, the older girls are needing to come out so that they can find husbands and move on with their lives, but they just cannot get out of this period of mourning, because every time they start approaching the end of their mourning period, some other sister dies. And it's just tragic. It's like they sneak out and go to these balls to meet somebody, despite the rules to stay home and mourn. All right, the next class, I can keep talking about that topic for a long time, because there's actually more books that are still like there's Fable. Fable takes place by the ocean. That one's a lot happier and more refreshing if you don't like the sorrows and the depression of the other books. But Fable is a lot of fun, and it's by the sea. It just makes me want to take a trip to the sea. So anyways, moving on to the next subject, which is science, which is which book couple do you think has the best chemistry? Okay, at first I did not realize that this was about like book couples. So my first reaction was Mistborn, because I'm like, my brain is like stuck on Mistborn. So I'm thinking science and chemistry. So Mistborn came to mind because of the magic system, which is different metals and metals. We're just gonna say metals. The magic system is based on where they ingest metals and then they can burn them to achieve different super magic powers. But now that I understand the question a little bit better, best book couple. Really, the absolute first one that comes to mind is Rhysand and Feyre. I just love them as a couple. They're just so, I just love them. I think that they're the first couple that I read that actually communicate with each other and they match each other, and they are not like perfect people by any means, but they kind of have bonded through their trauma, and because of their trauma they've become a really healthy couple, which is so annoying with books more and more when like people like miscommunicate and it's like so obvious. I don't know, I just really like them as a couple. But if I didn't answer them, who else would I answer? I don't even know. Oh no, I don't know, they're not really a couple though. They never like officially coupled up. Let's see. That's all I got for you. All right, the next class is history. Which 3 historical fiction novels have you most enjoyed? And if you don't read historical fiction, which areas of history would you like to learn more about? I personally like historical fiction. The book I chose for this is probably one of my favorite. I guess, is it more contemporary? It's like contemporary historical. I don't really know. City of Girls. I really liked this book. We start out the book between the 20s and the 30s, and our main character has moved to United States, moved to New York from England to get a handle on her life, get some direction. If only her parents knew where she was sending her off to, because she goes to live with her aunt, where she then learns about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. No, not really. But yes, sort of. Sex. They thought they were sending her off to like a theater, but it's not like the kind of theater that they thought. These women also do side favors for people to earn extra cash. I don't know, our main character is just so open-minded. And then later on, this book spans for like 70 years of her life. We go through a war. We go through the war. She takes care of herself. She's completely self-sufficient and is just really empowering. It's a really good book. An area of history that I am fascinated with are the monarchy eras. I have a whole bunch of books about different queens and different kings, and I'm just fascinated with that, because not only do they have to deal with being a woman and deal with religious oppression and the politics of the monarchy and such strict social rules and protocols, and what happens to them if their virtue is ruined. Just so much. I could not imagine. I'm just absolutely enamored and fascinated with it. And some of these women really, like, what they call it, Queen Victoria, they call her the Pirate Queen, Mary Queen of Scots, and King James, who was king during the later half of Shakespeare's time. He was actually king of 3 different countries at one time. He also led massive witch hunts. And King Henry VIII, like, as despicable as he was, we all know him for his 7 wives, but there's a lot more to him as well. Like, he was actually so intelligent with medicine. He was paranoid about dying and getting sick. So he funded a lot of projects to find medicine. And so a lot of medicine advancement came during his reign, and I just find that so fascinating. So anyways, needless to say, I love that. The next subject is PE. Show us your biggest book on your TBR. Now, for the longest time, it was this book, 1Q84. However, recently, I feel like a dummy because I recently did realize that this is actually 3 books in one, so it's a bind up. However, they don't separate the pages. So this is about 1,150 pages. But yeah, see, here's book 2. So I guess technically this is 3 books. But anyways, a new book, War and Peace. This book is about 1,200 some odd pages. I don't need to know the exact number. I just know it's a lot more pages than the other one. This is my marathon book. The next subject is art. Tell us which 3 books that you think have the best covers. Now look here. There cannot just be 3 best covers. There's only 3 of the best covers, which is very subjective based on my mood and what day it is. So today's best covers are Wicked Deep. I think this one's always on my best covers list. I just have always found this cover just so beautiful. Another cover I've always found just beautiful is this cover from The Darkest Star. It's like star graffiti. Not graffiti. What am I talking about? Stars falling down or whatever. I love stars. I have a thing for stars. What can I say? Let's also go with this cover where, I don't know, it's easy to grab and it is really cool. Love the illustrations. Whoever illustrates this series, I mean, the illustrations are just beautiful. That's my answer. I'm sticking with it. Music. What is the best format do you think has the best rhythm for reading? Well, okay. Let's talk about audiobooks. I actually have a video where I talk about audiobooks, I think, or different formats of reading. But since we're literally talking about auditory, let's talk about audiobooks. Last year, I could not listen to audiobooks to save my life. It was really depressing. As a general rule, I really do not like to listen to high fantasy or classics because I just can't listen to them. Also, it depends on the narrator. Apparently, I'm really picky about the narrator. If the narrator has like a really fake voice, or some of the older narrators from like 20 years ago, I really have a hard time. Most classics are done by like older narrators, which I really have a hard time listening to. Pretty much everything else I'm pretty good with. I just have to be in the right mood for it. Young adult contemporaries, I've gotten to the point where I don't like buy those books because they're not really, like, if I read them, I'm done with them. So I don't really see myself going back to them. So I don't usually, like, I wouldn't go out and buy the book. I would check it out on audiobook. Like some young adult fantasy and middle grade, I can listen to those on audiobook. Now, as far as speed, I listen to audiobooks on 2 times the speed. Hoopla actually allows you to listen to them on 3 times the speed. That's honestly a little too fast for me. However, I don't know about you, if you do the same thing as me, but when I listen to any books, even on 2 times the speed, it starts to feel like they're actually, like, I could actually listen to them faster now. And I don't know if that's just me or the narrators are just talking slower in general, but it's kind of annoying. The only other way to answer this question is, do I listen to music while I'm reading? I used to be an absolutely no sounds kind of person. in order to read. But when you have kids, you have to learn, or you're never going to listen to, or you're never going to read. So I've kind of trained myself to read even with external noise and stuff and distractions. However, I really like listening to lo-fi music, which you can find on like YouTube, and they have for like video, like your favorite video games. They have compilations for your favorite video games, and it's my absolute favorite, and I find it so relaxing. And in fact, I even find that it helps me study and focus more, especially when I'm having a hard time like getting my focus to begin with. I'll just like turn on some of this music, and for whatever reason, it actually helps calm me down and get me into that focusing mood. But yeah, that's my favorite lately. It's like the soundtrack to my life. I even got my husband turned on to it. So our little robot friend, who shall not be named because otherwise she'll start talking to me, she only knows lo-fi hip hop beats. On YouTube you can find more variety, but we've been like getting to the point where we just turn it on while we are like cleaning the house or doing projects and stuff like that. So like I said, soundtrack to my life. Okay, well, that was the last one. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night.